We do have some clips that we're going to play about Cameron Johnson, who you guys know. Me and Lance thought he's a Detroit Piston this summer. Man,
Yeah.
we look like fucking jackasses, by the way. We look like jackasses. We're like, yeah, Pistons are going after Cameron Johnson. But Cam Johnson was on Old Man of the Three, which is JJ Redick's podcast, and he was talking about Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. We're going to play this first clip of him talking about both of them.
Every year, you guys get ready for training camp. There's a select team, and there's a week of scrimmages and games between the select team and the senior national team. Were there any young guys that stood out to you during that run against the select team?
I like the group total. I think there's a lot of young talent on that team. Cade Cunningham played really well.
Yeah.
Jalen Duren played really well. And, I think somebody like a Jalen Williams is just like, he wasn't doing anything spectacular, but he's so solid, skilled, understands the game really well for being young in his career. So those guys did a really good job to me.
Is it weird to you that a guy that we were told by beat reporters, we were told by media that Cam Johnson to the Detroit Pistons was going to happen, and then he's like hyping up Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren? Does that kind of like piss you off a little bit as a fan?
I mean, I wouldn't say it makes me mad, but it makes me disappointed because he definitely has the game where I wouldn't say it would flourish next to Cade and Duren, but it would open things up for them. Like, he would be a great piece to play alongside Cade and Duren. He would definitely open things up. And listening to that clip, you almost hear just a tiny bit of disappointment where he's like, I wish I would have signed a contract with Detroit. Like, you can kind of hear just a little bit where he's like, dude, playing with Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, it might make my life a little easier. I mean, I know he's in a great situation in Brooklyn, but when you're kind of like one of those, you're not in your 30s yet, but you've been a veteran in the NBA for a little while, and you start to notice up-and-coming talent, and if you have an opportunity to play with them, you're like, man, damn, we might have been able to do some things. Because as a basketball fan, I think all of us could really say, like, we don't think the Brooklyn Nets, even though they're a fun team to watch, we don't think they're winning anything anytime soon with the current group. But if you're a guy like Cam Johnson, you might be like, damn, dude, I could have really played with these young guys and it would have been pretty sweet for a few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Brooklyn's a fun team. I think they'll make a chance at a playing spot. I think that they have the talent to do that with Mikal Bridges and those guys over there, and they're a very well coached team. But when I heard that clip, man, he's like hyping up like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Jalen Williams, by the way, that plays for OKC. I'm just like, man, like, it kind of pisses me off about the Joe Harris trade a little bit. And I know Joe Harris is a great player, but it's like, if the Pistons don't trade for Joe Harris, Brooklyn didn't have the cap space to sign Cam Johnson long term. It's just like, we helped Brooklyn sign Cam Johnson. I always think about that in the back of my head, but that's just my 2 cents on it. I love the fact that he's hyping up Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. There is one more clip, though, of him talking about Cade Cunningham and what Pistons fans should expect out of him this upcoming season.
On one team.
Yeah, right. Pistons are in good with Coach Mon over there. They're in good hands.
What would you on Cade for a second? Just because I feel like we haven't really gotten to see him because of the health stuff.
Right.
How would you describe him right now? We have a lot of Piston fans who like the show. Like, what should they be looking forward to?
I think he's going to have a very solid control of games because he's a big-bodied point guard that's able to get to his spots. And I think that's what he's refining as time goes on, is just not being able to be sped up, controlling the flow of the game, getting to his spots, being able to score, being able to distribute. And that's the challenge he posed. You put somebody smaller on him, and he's definitely going to be able to just kind of get to wherever he wants on the court. So he looked pretty good in those scrimmages.
Again, man, like, a little part of me inside is dead after hearing that.
It's funny though, like, we're all saying the same thing about Cade Cunningham, about his game. We're all noticing it, and a few of us have noticed it from the beginning, how he would, like the strengths of his game and how it would apply to an NBA game. And it's nice to hear it from Cam Johnson because he's reaffirming what a lot of us are thinking. Like, this is how Cade's going to take the next step. And just, he's a guy that's going to control the game, control the pace, get to his spots. He's going to be able to score over smaller guards, be able to do his thing against bigger guards. It's just nice to hear that an NBA player is complimenting him, but also just really repeating what we've all been saying about him all off season once we started to hear the news coming out from the Team USA practices. But yeah, dude, I don't want to be sour on Joe Harris, dude. So don't make me.
I know. It's just like, if you think about it though, it's like Brooklyn at the time did not have cap space to sign him to that big contract. And then Troy Weaver's like, hey, let me help you out there. We'll take on that $19 million for a year to help you guys out. It's just like, man, you better shoot like 50% from three. That's all I'm saying as a fan. But I know he's not going to. It's just like they're big. Like, this is like completely off topic with like the Cam Johnson stuff, but like Joe Harris, I've heard from beat reporters. I've seen like depth charts from articles. Like, they don't even have him like cracking a 10-man rotation, man. Like, why trade for a guy if you're not going to play him?
See, there's a part of me too, now that we're talking about it, it makes me think like Troy Weaver brought on Joe Harris so Brooklyn could sign Cam Johnson to that contract because he knows, okay, Brooklyn in 2 years when we're ready to compete, they're not a threat to us. I help them out now, but long-term, they're going to be worse off because they signed him to a bigger contract and they got all of these. I think the jury's still out on Mikal Bridges if he's like a bona fide number one franchise player. But if you look at it, they're kind of constructed in a way like how much of us thought like the going to work squad was, where you didn't have a true number one. You just had a bunch of really good players, but they're still missing that one, like they're still missing that one superstar piece. And the one superstar I've always brought back to the going to work squad was Ben Wallace because he was a superstar on defense and he was basically the franchise player and how they were built around. I think Brooklyn's still missing that piece. But again, I think it's more of like a 4D chess move, I guess, from Troy Weaver, where, you're going to be good for the next 2-3 seasons, but when Detroit's ready to compete, you're not going to be a threat to us when we're ready to contend. That's kind of how that's at least going to make me feel better about not getting Cam Johnson and trading for Joe Harris. So I'm just going to think about it that way.
Yeah. Like, I hope Joe Harris plays. I really do. Like, maybe these beat reporters are wrong. Maybe I'm reading too much into their articles because it's summer and they have to write content. But like, I just kind of found it interesting that they didn't even have him like in a rotation. Like I said, we'll have media day tomorrow, so we'll probably have so much freaking content for next week's podcast. Maybe we do an emergency podcast. Who knows? You never know. You never know, man. Like it's just I can't wait for the season. I love the fact, though, that a Piston, a non-Piston, I should say, in Cam Johnson, was talking positively about Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. Like he didn't have to. He could have named anyone on that select team. He could have said Jalen Green. He could have said he could have said basically anybody. But first name that came out of his mouth was Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren. I absolutely love that.